Good morning to you. Hello, welcome to the Lagos Center on Kaakaki, the African Voice. I am Okoli Omaudu. Now today on the program from our Lagos studio, we shall be taking a look at party politics and the road to 2015. Now politics has been seen from different perspectives depending on the school of thought one belongs to. Above all, many have agreed that politics remains the vehicle for driving growth and development in any given nation across the globe. In Nigeria, however, politics has been seen by many as a vehicle for self-aggrandizement, or what some people, like the famous American political scientist, Professor Richard Joseph, would want to refer to as prebendal politics, that is politics of self-satisfaction. So this morning on Kaakaki from our Lagos Center, we shall be taking a look at party politics in Nigeria and the road to 2015. Joining me in the studio is someone who's been following developments in the polity. He is Babatunde Gbadamosi, a public affairs commentator and also a politician. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Now let me begin by asking you, how would you assess, you're a politician, I don't want to know which party you belong to, but then, or maybe you're a private or independent candidate this time. But let me ask you, how would you assess party politics in Nigeria?
Well, we've come a long way. The Fourth Republic, this Fourth Republic that we've been operating since 1999, has seen a lot of progress in terms of at least at the national level, in terms of the attitudes of politicians to their roles in the area of national development. We've seen more and more people that we would have regarded as technocrats come into party politics, and I think that we require yet more of that to happen. We've seen people from the so-called civil society groups who have moved into party politics to express as best they can their hopes and aspirations for the people. We've seen people from your side of the divide, in the fourth estate of the realm, join the fray, as it were, to contribute their quota to the growth of the country. So, to the extent that there has been no interruption to the democratic experiment, well, it's no longer, it's sort of taken on a much more prominent hue because of the lack of an interruption. The Third Republic lasted only 4 years. Okay, now we've been at it for roughly 14 years now, and we're maturing. Slowly but surely, we're maturing. There are still issues. There are still some very serious issues. You mentioned on prebendal politics. We still have a large number of people, unfortunately, who still practice that type of politics. Some of them are in power, some of them are not. Operating from outside. Yeah, some of them are not elected officials, but yet they are in power.
They're actually holding the power,
yes, they're actually holding power in certain parts of the country, very, very tightly indeed. Some of them, despite not being in power, have cornered the resources of the areas that they come from, and this is something that we'll have to tackle as time goes on.
And I'm just wondering how long it's going to take us to begin to tackle these issues. Now, in other climes, you have people engage in what they call developmental politics, where issues are discussed, how people should improve, how infrastructure should improve. But sometimes what we hear around here, particularly when it comes to parties, opposition, the ruling party, is what we call bitterness. When politicking, you see people accusing people instead of doing what is called constructive criticism of any party or anybody who is in power. So when are we going to begin to see this change? Why is it? What exactly is the reason for this?
At the national level, you see that there does appear to be some degree of desperation on the part of the parties in opposition. Every election year, as we approach the election year, you get a lot of noise, a lot of activity, a great deal of really malicious statements, publications, campaigns that focus a lot of the times on the personalities of the players rather than on the policies that they've instituted. So therefore you will see, for instance, opposition parties pointing fingers at the wife of an incumbent elected official, or in order to use the wife's mistakes to criticize the elected official. You would see issues like snide references to the history, to the personal history of the individual. Perhaps they might have come from a deprived background. You hear these snide references often and again, and you wonder whether we're in this politics for self-aggrandizement or to serve the people. And then you see sometimes the degree of desperation that accompanies some of the political campaigns, where people are really fighting tooth and nail to, as it were, serve their people, in some cases almost by force. I remember watching in a particular state in the South, where a particular person wanted to become the governor of that state, moved into the state with armed men, a huge army of armed men, and proceeded to burn down the secretariat, the government secretariat. Burns down vehicles that were going to be used, I think they were going to be used to fight crime, something like that. They've been parked up at the secretariat. A whole lot of them were burnt down. There was a lot of looting, damage to public property.
Now, what I want to know, you are a politician, you've been in it all this while. Yes. Why does this happen? Is it not possible to practice politics without...
There are a lot of people in politics in Nigeria that should not be in politics. And there are a lot of people who are not in politics that should be in politics. Okay? And you find that a lot of people that are in politics these days are quite simply bereft of ideas. They don't have any plans as to what to do when they get into office, when they do get power. Some of them go for executive positions, and they don't have any plans whatsoever. They have no agenda. They've come in there simply to get power and to position themselves in such a way that they can corner resources. You get people who go into legislative elected positions, and they don't have an agenda as far as legislation is concerned. They don't have any specific area that they want to make an impact in terms of legislation. So you see them go to the House, and we watch them on TV. Some of them fall asleep, while the session is on, and you see how empty the legislature is sometimes when live sessions are being shown. So it now comes down to the fourth estate of the realm, your field. I reckon that you guys don't ask enough questions. I reckon that you don't dig enough into the backgrounds of people that present themselves for public office. And this is having a serious impact on the quality of people that get into the public space via politics.
All right, before we begin to look at what can be done to ensure that this kind of people you described do not get power at all, let's look at what happened recently in Nigeria, a coalition of political parties in an attempt to probably outwit the ruling party in 2015, and the controversies that have been immersed with the registration and all of that. Now, what do you make of this coalition as we move to the road towards 2015?
It's been quite almost a comedy, hasn't it? And this is not to knock the idea of a merger, as it were. A merger and acquisition is what I call it, even though it's political. But it's obvious that there are some business interests involved. One of the political parties is known for their ultra-capitalist agenda, where certain members or leaders of those parties have more or less cornered the resources of the areas that they control. Now, a political merger of this nature is not a bad thing, in essence. It's actually quite good that parties have recognized their inherent limitations, they've seen their shortcomings, and they're willing to acknowledge them by stretching their hands across in partnership to other political organizations. Now, that said, you look at the quality of the organizations that are supposed to be emerging here, and you find that in terms of ideology, they're quite empty. They don't have a clear ideology. Neither of them, none of the organizations that are emerging now has a clear-cut ideology as to where they want to take the country. Okay? And if you're to gauge their intentions, one would have to look at the areas in which they're dominant right now. And if you look at those areas, you'll find that what I've just said regarding the cornering of public resources into private pockets is what is de rigueur in these days. And the general public will look at that and they will question whether they want to trust such organizations with power at the federal level. So the merger is nice, it's a very nice idea on paper. The reality of its operation, however, is going to be a different kettle of fish. There are two very strong personalities involved. Okay, one is known for, one was known once for an anti-corruption stance. The other is known, on the other hand, for a much touted pro-democratic position. But beyond democracy, which is what we're already practicing, you cannot sell sand to the Arabs. You cannot say, oh, look, I'm a Democrat. We're all Democrats. We're already operating a democratic system. So what more are you bringing to the table? What else? What other ideas do you have? In the states that you control, you profess that you're providing free education, but the reality on the ground is that there has been a limitation, a deliberate series of policies that have resulted in the reduction of educational opportunities to the people on the ground. That is a reality that people in these territories are facing today.
Now, let's look at what really should be the role of the opposition in any politics. Elsewhere you hear where they say opposition is supposed to be constructively and objectively
I'll give you an example.
Addressing the issues and helping even in developing the nation. Does that happen in Nigeria?
I'll give you an example. There are states in Nigeria where that happens. For instance, I can give you the example of Lagos State, where the opposition party in Lagos State, the PDP, will criticize the sitting government and then proffer solutions to specific problems. Like, for instance, there was the issue of the ruling party called it the restriction of commercial motorcyclists from operating on about 400 roads in the Lagos metropolis. It's not a bad idea in of itself, but it would have been better if it were accompanied by certain measures. For instance, if you insist that these 406 really strategic routes, in terms of one, the length of areas that they actually cover. For instance, if you say that Okadas, as we call them, cannot operate on the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, it's a very long road. Okay, it's about 70 kilometers in length. And
very risky indeed for Okada to operate on that road,
well,
I think. It's a highway, isn't it?
And on the other side, you say that you don't want Okadas to operate. Then you say only Okadas of 200cc and above can operate on these roads. And the question I want to ask is, how does the higher capacity of the engine make them any safer? How does it? It actually makes them more dangerous because it means they can move faster. And the faster they move, the more fatal the accidents they will be involved will be.
Okay, that's at the state level. At the national level, do you think the opposition has actually been there to help in developing the country by constructive and objectively criticizing the government?
I think the answer to that is no. It's very clear that the opposition have always taken the position of just opposing everything. Just oppose, just argue, oppose, fight, abuse, trenchant digging in of their positions. They just stay in their dugouts and they don't come out of there. Now, I think that the way they're playing politics at the moment is not the way forward for Nigeria. There is a certain degree of malice, there is a certain degree, it would appear, of poison. The atmosphere is becoming toxic at the national level. And it really is unnecessary. And the people, for instance, at the Abuja local government elections just a couple of days ago, the people made their position known. They said no to the opposition. The PDP won, hands down. Why? Because people identify more with what the PDP is doing at within the Federal Capital Territory. And they understand that what the position of the opposition parties is untenable in most cases. Some of the criticism that is leveled at the PDP is completely unwarranted, completely uncalled for. Like, for instance, we're talking about deregulation. The court has pronounced today that the deregulation policy is somewhat illegal and should be stopped. But, you know, I don't expect that the government will sit on their oars and allow that to go. I expect that an appeal would follow very quickly. Okay. The opposition, when the idea of removing subsidies was mooted early last year, came out, you know, swinging their fists, brickbats and all, flying all over the place, insisting that, you know, the subsidies had to remain. But we recall that a little earlier in the previous year, these same opposition governors had insisted that the subsidy had to be removed in order for their allocation to be increased. So when it seemed that Labour and the people in general would not be willing to pay a higher price for their petrol, they quickly did a volte-face. They quickly reversed their position.
In the interest, that was in the interest of the people.
No, it wasn't. It clearly wasn't, because they're still demanding.
Let's hang it there.
They're still demanding that their allocations be increased. Now, where is the government going to get the money for that from?
All right. Now, whether you like it or not, the race, I should say, for 2015 has already started from the political calculations that people are already making. And then I just want to ask you, as a politician, what do you think, or what kind of issues would you advise that, whether it is opposition or the ruling party, should be bringing to the people at this time?
I think we should all focus on the economy. I see that the federal government is already doing that. Okay, we're focusing on the economy. We need to grow the economy, we need to deepen the economy, we need to widen the economy. In the area of agriculture, for instance, the Minister for Agriculture has been doing a wonderful job of providing incentives to farmers, expanding the agricultural industry, so that people who would normally not consider farming as a vocation, as a profession, as an industry, have gone into it. And the result is obvious. Where food prices are going up all over the world, we don't seem to have that problem right now in Nigeria. Agricultural inputs have increased. Okay, the methods by which farmers communicate with the buyers and so on and so forth have improved. The variety of products that are available now from the farms have also increased. The cassava industry is growing in leaps and bounds. We're seeing improvements being made in the area of fruit cultivation. We're seeing improvements being made in the area of vegetables cultivation. We're seeing improvements in the area of poultry. The poultry industry is growing in leaps and bounds. And so the same goes for fisheries. People are opening more and more fish farms all over the country. And the result is that we have a healthier, relatively, if you took a snapshot of Nigeria in the early 90s, when we were in the tight grip of military dictatorship, and you take a snapshot of Nigeria at that time, and you take a snapshot of Nigeria today, you'll see that there is a marked difference in the agricultural industry. Non-oil exports have grown immensely over the last few years, and they will continue to grow if the policies that are being pursued by this government continue. And they're basically a carryover of the policies of the Babatunde administration, which were interrupted briefly. But I think we're now back on track.
Now look, that's agriculture and economy that you've talked about that should be looked into. But talking about party politics, which is the crux of this discussion, some Nigerians have actually lost faith in parties, because...
Well, my answer to them is join your own or create your own party. Nothing in the law stops you from setting up. I mean, the old UPN has been resuscitated. The old Unity Party of Nigeria. Some people have gotten together and they've said, we're fed up of the way things are running. We want to do our own thing. Okay? Now, it will be irresponsible of people to sit on the sidelines and criticize and not make any attempts. It's the same thing that you've been talking about. And not make any attempts, any positive attempts to change things. Okay? If you sit on the sidelines and allow buffoons to rule you, then you will just have to accept mediocrity as your lot in life. Okay? The imagination of the leaders is what you are left with if you allow buffoons to run the country for you.
Now, how do Nigerians get this buffoons you are talking about out of the way? You were talking about...
Vote. Join the political process and start voting. Don't stay on Twitter, Facebook, BlackBerry and send out malicious messages all over the place. Join the process. Participate. Register to vote. Vote. Join political parties. Make it clear what your position is on specific issues and push your agenda. You cannot do that outside of the political system. Join politics. If you say politics is only for dropouts and never do wells and touts and area boys, then the imagination of the touts is what you get in place of governance.
Now, many people want to believe that it's not just about joining politics, because we've seen people who talk exactly the way you're talking, and they believe they're going to make Nigeria better. But once they get into politics, what you see is they start singing a different tune and start amassing wealth.
That's not always true. That's not always true.
I think we've seen people like that.
Yes, we have seen people like that. But the reason you see that happening is because a lot of these people had an agenda. They had a different agenda, and they saw that politics was a way to get to that agenda. So when you see them in public office and they're misbehaving, that's what their agenda was from the get-go. They never had any plans to change anything. Okay? They may have mouthed off on, we have to change Nigeria, this country has to be better and so on, but you have to ask for specifics. You have to ask them how they plan to do that. How much is it going to cost? Say, for instance, you come in and say, I'm going to change my state. I'm going to make free education possible. I'm going to introduce free healthcare. You have to ask them, how are they going to get the funding for that? How do they plan to get the funding? Or is it just going to be done out of thin air? And you can see, for instance, in the Southwest, where promises have been made about free education, free healthcare, and so on. All those promises have been broken because the people that made those promises had no plans to do that. They had no plans.
I'll let you go, but not before I ask you this. Is there anything for Nigerians to celebrate? We're talking about centenary celebration in 2014 and ahead of 2015 election. Do you think there is actually anything to celebrate in our national life?
The fact that we're actually still talking about Nigeria today is something to celebrate. The people that created Nigeria, the British, did not have our best interests at heart when they did so. Now it is up to us, the people who are in that geographical expression called Nigeria. Some people like to say that it's an empty geographical expression. But after, almost 100 years of being together, of participating in government together, of intermarrying, of NYSC and so on, we have developed an identity that is distinctly Nigerian. We have what the youth now call a distinctively Nigerian swagger. Okay? And that swagger, permit me to use the word again, is easily identifiable when you're abroad. If you on the streets of London, okay, you're walking down the street, a group of black people gather, you can tell who the Nigerian is amongst them. Before you realize what ethnic group they belong to in Nigeria, you will know first that is a Nigerian. That's something that we need to celebrate. Swagger. Yes, and that's the swagger, if you want to call it that.
All right.
Nigerians especially have, that is so unique to them. That's why all over the world you hear of, you walk into any bar, I challenge you, walk into any bar, anywhere in the world, and it's more than likely before you sit down there for 1 hour, you either hear the music of the band walking across the speakers, or you hear the music of P-Square, or you hear the music of Asha. That, my people, is worth celebrating.
I have to stop you there. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to keep talking. We've been taking a look at party politics in Nigeria and the road to 2015. My guest has been Babatunde Gbadamosi, a public affairs commentator and a politician. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Kaakaki, the African Voice, now returns to Abuja for more. Do stay with us.
Very much, Nkoli. Definitely, there's no more from this end. That's it. The midweek edition of the African Voice. We hope that you've had a great time. Thanks for your investment.
Thank you very much. She's in a hurry to contact us for them, but I'll take her up on it. My name is Adora Onyechere. Have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. See you tomorrow.